Hey guys, want to call a quick timeout to tell your listeners what I've been telling the Kurt Angle Show audience for a while now about all cool things going on over at adfreeshows.com.
We get a peek behind the curtain on an all-new edition of The Insiders, as Conrad sits down with former WWE writer and current Impact producer Jimmy Jacobs.
You start to realize that you're one weird interaction with Vince away from being in the doghouse or being fired.
Wow.
And then you just start to behave in a way to try to not get fired. And then your ideas become ideas in an effort to not get fired. And pretty soon you have a whole bunch of people that are playing to not lose.
Want to pick the brain of the Podfather? We just celebrated episode 50 of Ask Conrad, our Q&A mailbag series where Conrad answers your questions.
So to me, Solo kind of has the Arn Anderson syndrome right now, where Arn was as good of a wrestler as anybody on the card, but because he's standing next to Ric Flair, he's just not going to get that opportunity. And even if he did, I think fans would say, oh yeah, I love Arn, but why isn't Ric here? And it feels a little bit like Shake and Bake in the old Talladega Nights. And I understand the Will Ferrell character was winning all the time, but what if the other fellow won? What if Mr. John C. Reilly won? And I think that's kind of the Solo circumstance.
If you're looking for interactive experiences, Ad-Free Shows members can now take part in the live tapings of the podcast and are now part of the show.
Eric Jones, Josh Henney, Nathan, Mitchell, Coach Rosie, RJ, Amy's here. She came to the Testicle Festival. That's awesome. We get like one or two women, every once in a while, and I just love it when we do. Thank you all for doing this with us. This is kind of fun. Amy Vaughn's here. Amy! This is fun. I dig this. This is a different kind of energy. I don't know why.
Yeah, you're performing for a crowd now. It's not just me anymore, right? We're expanding.
Wow, and that's just a small taste of what Ad-Free Shows is waiting for you. With 4 levels to choose from, see for yourself why adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up today. Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
The recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hello and welcome to Arn. This is Paul Bromwell, and I'm joined by the legend himself, Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you this week?
Is it really New Year's Eve?
It is. It is New Year's Eve. We're through Christmas. New Year's Eve, buddy. We're about to jump right into 2023. Has this year flown by or what?
The last 3 years have blown by, to be honest with you. I still see the effects of, you still hear about people getting sick, but now it's the virus and one more and COVID all rolled into one. It's got like a 3-tiered name or something, it just seems like every time you cut on the TV, it's just something new, man. So thank God we've been here. Maybe we gave a few laughs to a few folks and lightened their day, and that's the goal, right?
Absolutely. Well, Arn, listen, this is what we're going to do on this show because this is a Ask Arn Anything. But before we jump in, today's a special day for the show. This is the first time ever that members of our ad-free show family are sitting in on this recording as we're doing this together. And so this is fun. We got our comment panel up here on the right. You can see it as well. We got Yambag Jones, Brian Fuller, Rob Hewitt, Tim Angston, so many guys that are sitting here watching this live, and it's great to see you guys here. We hope you enjoy this. This is the first time that we've ever done this. Bryant Haremza, he worked ahead just so to make sure he didn't miss this, so he's here. But man, we are just having a lot of fun. This month, by the way, if you're not an ad-free show member, we did a Zoom event where you got to ask questions to Arn live on Zoom. So you want to sign up to ad-free shows. But man, we're just excited to do this. Arn, this is pretty cool though, as you see the comments flood in, huh?
Yeah, it is. You know, I get it, guys. Sitting through commercials is a pain in the ass sometimes, but let me tell you something. Those kind people pay a lot of bills and make all this possible. So, pretty fair trade out here.
There you go. Well, listen, man, before we jump into Ask Arn Anything, and I thank you guys all for joining us today for this live show, I do got to mention it. As I said, we're recording ahead of time due to the holiday schedule. I point that out because we are 3 days away from closing the Kickstarter campaign for your book, Arn Anderson, My Life as a Wrestling Enforcer. The project is fully funded, and I want to thank the fans, buddy. We've crushed the first set of stretch goals. We're well on our way to completing the second set of stretch goals as well. And there are only 3 days left to get in on the fun and invest in shaping of this amazing graphic novel. And I don't want to embarrass either of them, but there are at least 2 members of the Ad-Free Shows family that are going to be immortalized in your book because they pledged the highest level available. And that means they're actually going to make it into the story. So knowing this is going to be the last time we talk about all this, Arn, please share your thoughts on what this means to you, having your memoir in this graphic novel.
Well, walking in to my life story, getting a cameo, is that the way I understand it for these folks, right?
That's exactly right.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool. This is like something I thought I would never do because it's partial comic book, it's partial autobiography, and it's my life story. And you know, when you put your life out there, and everyone's eyes, you know, determine one way or the other how they feel about it. You know, that's their option. Didn't hold much back. There were some things that's going to shock you. There's some things that you didn't know. Some things you won't believe, and it's just one of those things that you get towards the end of your life, and you want to, you know, immortalize some certain moments that people don't know about because it helps shape who you are. And they're going to get all that in the comic book, and I appreciate the support 100%.
James, you nailed it on the head. I love it. And Tim says he needs your shirt, buddy. So you can pick those up over at boxofgimmicks.com. So we're loving that. But, man, I really can't wait for the graphic novel. A lot of hard work going into it. It's going to be a hell of a time, hell of a read, and to see it in just a different form, just like we saw Tony's book, and now we get to see yours and see your stories. And what I'm really digging is you keep sharing with us, there's going to be some things in there that we haven't read before about your life, Arn. So there's going to be some gold nuggets there for sure. So looking forward to that. But Arn, let's do it. Let's jump into it. It's time for the main event. We're here to ask Arn almost anything. And having skimmed over these questions, Arn, I think we're going to have a lot of fun today, buddy. Are you ready to dive in?
Yes, I am.
All right. Okay, here we go. So we saved the questions that we didn't get to last time. As promised, I said we're going to get those in. So we're going to start with Gavin. He has a couple questions for you. He wrote, first about my favorite spot ever, the fake punch into a DDT on Alex Wright. It was smart, it was simple, it was effective, and I popped like I had just watched Chipper hit a walk-off home run. Was this a spur-of-the-moment thing or something that you had been around on house shows and finally made it to TV? And I just want to give a little context around this for those that don't remember this spot. It was WCW Slamboree. It was from May 21st, 1995. Arn, you acted like you were going to punch him. He ducked down, and when he went down for that fake punch, you just cinched him in and drilled him with that DDT. Was that on the fly, or was that planned, or what was that about?
Well, it had happened a previous night. We were working a house show loop, and I literally went to punch him in the mouth, and he literally ducked. And he started coming out of it kind of slow, like, oh, I dodged a bullet, and I went, well, that feels a little awkward now, but what if I put something behind that if it ever comes up again? Very next night, because he got a nice reaction, like a chicken shit reaction from the audience, like the first time he ducked, to get out of, anytime in our business that you can avoid contact, it always gets a nice chicken shit reaction. And I thought, well, I could snatch him on a DDT right there, and we just kind of did it on the fly. And when we got to the back, he went, what was that? I said, worked, didn't it? He said, yes, very effective. So it was just kind of thrown in there on the fly, and it absolutely worked. And enough people saw it that it became iconic, and people remember.
I got to ask you, since we're here talking about Alex Wright, what were your thoughts about him in general as a performer? I mean, he came in with that great look, big expectations. What were your thoughts on Alex Wright as a performer?
Well, I thought Alex had a huge upside. You know, he was a handsome kid. He was really young. You know, he was foreigner, he's German, you know, so he had an accent, which made him, you know, different. He had a lot of things going for him. I'm thinking maybe the timing wasn't just perfect. There were a lot of new characters getting brought into WCW, and he kind of got caught up in the, you know, all those different, you know, ones. If you go back and think about him, you know, how many people got the Karate Guy, Glacier, Mortis, you know, Yo Baby, Yo Baby, Yo.
Yeah,
you know.
PM News, yeah.
They all were kind of debuted around the same time frame, and I think Alex got kind of caught up in that. But, you know, he was a good worker too, you know.
We can't forget Norman the Lunatic. I mean, they were all coming out back then, right? You know?
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Hey, I just want to give a shout out to the First Lady of the Arn Anderson Club, Amy Vaughn. She's joined us. She's here in the chat. Good to see you, Amy. Gavin has a second question. He said, I watched you wrestle at the Charleston Civic Center in West Virginia at least a dozen times through the 80s and 90s. Any good stories from your time in West Virginia, either in the ring or at Joey's after the matches?
One-stop shopping, Joey's. Well, we stayed to Marriott, which was right next to the building. This may not mean a lot to most people, but very seldom do you ever get to work a venue where your hotel is right there. The gym is not very far, but the building is almost right on the grounds of the hotel. It's right across the street. And then we had Joey's, which was half a country western store, half barbecue, Joey's Barbecue. And Joey was a good dude. He liked the boys, and everybody went in and bought ostrich cowboy boots from him. Must have been, God, I would guess probably 25 pair bought over the course of time of going there with WCW. That's a lot of, you know, they were $500 a pair back then. So everybody had a pair of cowboy boots, ostrich, from Joey's, and would always eat there and hang out, have a few drinks after the show. Charleston was one of those stops that you went, yeah, man, we can relax for a day. There's no traffic, nothing to deal with, no long trip from the arena to going to the airport or any of that stuff. Plus, if it laid out the right way, I could drive it from Charlotte and be home that night. A lot of positives.
It sounds like a good time. You triggered a thought that been wanting to bring up on the show, and I got to watch. Finally, been catching up on Tales of the Territories. You talked about buying those ostrich boots, and it brought me back to the story that you told when they did Jim Crockett Promotions on Tales of the Territories about how you and Tully and Tully's wife and Lex all went in and got those Mercedes-Benz, and they dropped the keys there. Man, that was such a good episode with you and Ricky Morton and the rest of the group telling the story of Jim Crockett Promotions. That was a great show.
I'm going to throw out, thank you. I'm going to throw this out there to all of our ad-free people, because you know, they're the ones that determine a lot of things, and wrestling fans in general determine a lot of things that go on, and we're able to watch. It seemed like that episode, as well as some other ones, it felt like it was over too soon. You know what I mean? Just a 1 hour just flew by, and we were there 8 hours taping. So there is a huge amount of unused footage, which I'm sure from each week and each show is the same thing. A lot of stuff didn't make air. I'm a fan of that show, you know, and a fan of those guys. They really treated us nice that produce it. I would say that, you know, come out with round 2 with the footage they've already got. I think they got a whole nother season just sitting there on the cutting room floor.
Either that, or if you produce like a DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, let's get some behind-the-scenes content, the stories that didn't make the cut or something. Because you're right, there's got to be a ton more content out there, stuff that we'd love to hear.
as a fan, all those episodes, a lot of that stuff, I had never heard that story because there was no social media back then.
Yeah.
You know, there were no cell phones back then. Guys weren't picking up the phone saying, "Hey, you gonna believe what just happened?" Da, 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 da. There wasn't that kind of communication. So a lot of those stories were very intriguing because I had never heard them myself.
I loved how they were going back through and telling some of the Jim Cornette stories too, just about how the red hot heat of him hitting Baby Doll with the racket, and then how you had the James brothers trying to drag him out of the arena, and how it came this close to ripping his head off. Guys, if you haven't seen it, what I'm trying to say is you need to go back and watch that episode. So good, so well done. And Arn, you represented yourself so well, and it was so fun to watch that. But you're right, man. I'm hoping we can get some more of those stories and more of that content out. All right, let's keep it rolling. Jason Tepper says, listen, he said, thoughts on recreating the Four Horsemen 4.0 with Brock, Brian Pillman Jr., and Tessa. What do you think about that?
Well, obviously, at some point and sometime, I would sure love to see one more successful run by the Four Horsemen, renamed. I do own the trademark, which, was not easy to acquire, as you can imagine, and pretty expensive. But Counselor, our buddy Mike Dawkins, made that possible. So not only do Brock and I own our names, we own the Horseman deal. I think Brian has a lot of potential. I'm still trying to figure Brian out. That was talked about after, the successful outing they had at StarCast, right? They had a good match. I think that there's a possibility that something like that could happen. I think Tessa Blanchard, from what I've seen in the past, has a lot of talent. That's for sure. Has a great look. Not sure what's going on with her and her business these days, or what her goals or any of that is. I don't know Tessa like that.
Right.
It's been a casual crossing of paths, maybe 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 conversations. It's something to think about. Definitely.
Do you like the idea of there just being the Four Horsemen around as a wrestling faction again, or do you think you just let it be where it's at and create something new?
Great point. I don't want to put, to put that moniker on some of the versions. I'm not going to say all of them because, let's just face it, there were a few versions that weren't so good. Some that flopped, some that failed, but there were some that live in infamy.
That's right.
And they're still talking about them today. And 25 years from now, maybe they'll be talking about that group. But that's a lot of pressure to put on 3 kids if they truly understand what it means. And I know Brock would. I think Tessa would, just from what I've heard as far as her business sense. I don't know about Brian. I don't know Brian that well. I'm trying to get to know him. But, that's a lot of pressure, to call yourself the Four Horsemen in the new group. Certainly, that will become, when I'm gone, Brock will inherit that trademark and be able to do with it. I know he'll do with it what I would like, but more so make it their own and make it better. The key word would be make it better.
There you go. Evolve it and run with it. And
yes.
Make Dad proud. There you go.
He already has done that. That's
there you
for
go.
Sure.
Another friend of the show, Lenny Bakken, asked, during your time as a horseman in the 80s, how would you handle fans that approached you in hotels, casinos, etc., that wanted to talk or get an autograph? Did you keep up your heel persona?
A lot of the time, people will probably tell you yes. I would avoid when I was going to my room by just telling them, hey, I'm going to go put my bags in there in my room. I'll be back down. Now, whether I came back or not, that was suspect. But I would probably be lying if I said no thank you without a little bass, which I did. Sometimes, you know, if you just weren't in the mood and it was midnight and you were finally getting to your hotel and you drove 400 miles that day to get to the town and you had worked out and you had wrestled and you're walking towards the elevator and you see people blocking the elevator because they know you have to wait for the elevator. There was a little bit of, I always thought there was a lot of attitude, you know, by doing that. And I would just say, no, thank you, but with some bass.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you told the story about not sure if you and Tully want to come out and say hi to a certain individual because, hey, we're heels. And then you come out and it's Gene Hackman. Remember that?
Well, I'd hated to have missed that, huh?
Sheesh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I ever, you know, cussed kids or anything like that. I've had some cuss me. You know, 10-year-old flipping you off was always entertaining. But I'm sure I could have been a little different. You know, the business was a different. Let me just put it to you this way. To everyone that I was rude to, that anyone I barked at, anything negative like that, it was a different time. And for us to make the product as enjoyable for you, we had to really be assholes and really had to be heels and live up to our, you know, our character.
Well, listen, to that little 10-year-old boy, we'll just call him Little Andrew. Little Andrew, we're sorry that you felt the need to flip off Arn Anderson. He's the man. He's the daddy. He is the king of the four horsemen. You shouldn't have been flipping him off. And I hope your mom washed your mouth out with soap for the language you were using to Mr. Anderson. We're going to keep it going. Mike Parker wrote, how important were the magazines in the 80s and early 90s? This is a great question. And how big was it to land a place on the cover? Arn, it felt like magazines were how we learned everything. You said it earlier. No social media, no Twitter, no et cetera. It was magazines. It was Bill Apter doing his thing. And talk about it and how important it was to be on the cover.
Oh, it was huge because, you know, it was our USA paper for the wrestling business, you know, Pro Wrestling Illustrated. If you were voted match of the month or match of the year or tag team of the year or all that, it was legitimate. It's like winning the Heisman Trophy. It was viewed with that kind of credibility. It was a big, big deal. Bill Apter and all of his crew and George Napolitano and all his crew, all those guys. You know, sorry if I'm leaving some names out, but man, all those guys, they legitimized what we did, and their word was, you know, law.
Yeah, we a guy in the chat, Rob Hewitt, said, I miss wrestling magazines. Man, you're absolutely right. Some of those have become such great collectibles, and to have you guys be able to sign, I'm sure you've signed your share of wrestling magazine covers in your day.
Not until I look through them first, because I enjoy going back and looking through them as much as anybody. It was iconic, it really was.
Some of the cool things, too, are like the old wrestling programs. You think about the Jim Crockett Memorial Cup. They had programs. You can still, I found a couple of those on eBay, but man, that's just, to me, that's all part of the memories and part of your heritage. And I think you and I, a few months ago, I read a clip out of that magazine that was written about you, and we had a little bit of fun with it. So man, those definitely were the days. Devin Dowling's up, and he's here to bust my balls, Arn. He says, Arn, how does it feel to still have more hair than your co-host? Love you, Paulie.
I think Paulie shaves his head. There's such a huge difference. He's probably got a bouffant stuck up there like Furlan Husky. And it's just another person that has a great head of hair and screws it up on purpose. It drives, and here I've got the palmetto bush.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. That's all it ever is going to be.
Dude, there you go, RJ. Bald is beautiful. How dare you, Devin? Listen, he's a slap dick. Arn, you know what? If I grew in some hair, it would be patchy and blotchy. But dude, that's just I don't know. I just you're right. I just do my thing. I just have to give it the old Mr. Clean look. So
no maintenance, right?
That's right. It's easy.
Run a razor over it one time in the morning, you're good for the day.
I want to pause this episode of Arn to make you aware of something that Arn and I are really big fans of, and that's Jimmy's Famous Seafood. If you've not eaten there, then you don't know what you're missing. Check it out, jimmysfamousseafood.com. They ship food nationwide, and right now we have an offer for you. Free 2-day nationwide shipping on orders over $125. Now, that excludes steamed crabs and some fresh items, but $125. They have items like crab cakes, soups, chowders, oysters, signature steaks. I'm telling you, their crab cake egg rolls are to die for. I get it every time I go. When you use promo code ARN, just those 3 letters at checkout, you're going to be able to take advantage of that free 2-day nationwide shipping. They have several packages that make great holiday gifts, such as the famous gift box. That includes 4 of the world's best colossal Maryland crab cakes, 2 different crab soups, crab dip, seafood seasoning, and their signature base sauce. Or there's the tailgate bundle. 2 pounds of wings, a full rack of ribs, a pint of crab dip, and crab cake mix. Or you can create your own package, and boy, do they have options. They've been in business over 40 years. They've been featured in diners, drive-ins, and dives, and Bobby Flay, and so much more. So check it out, jimmysfamousseafood.com. Use promo code ARN, and you'll get that free 2-day nationwide shipping. You can take advantage of it for your holiday party, your New Year's party. Again, it's going to arrive so quick, fresh, ice cold, and you're going to be the hit of your next gathering. Take advantage of this offer right now. jimmysfamousseafood.com, promo code ARN. He also wants to know what you're both getting the missus for Christmas. So, Arn, as this is released, Christmas has already happened. Christmas gifts for Erin. Anything big?
I failed horribly. She's the hardest person on earth, and I'm not kidding you, to buy for her. You know, we have been together for so long. If you look behind me, that curio cabinet, I guess you call them.
Yeah, that's, yep.
Is full of Swarovski crystal. I mean, there's probably 60, 70, I don't know, 80 pieces that I've given her over the years for different deals. Last year, we were 1 year ago exactly, almost, in December, when it was so difficult to get a SUV because the chip, if you remember all that dilemma we went through, was not available.
Yes.
It took us 5 months of going in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is not a little town, it's a big city, of constantly going to every dealership we could. I finally got her a Volkswagen Atlas, which is a great car. It's been
okay.
Great.
Yeah, that's their SUV, right?
Yep, it's big, it rides nice, but man, they were priced $10,000 over list is what they were getting for the vehicles, and they had a list this long waiting for them to get it. You take it or leave it. Hey, we got 15 people waiting on this vehicle. So that was a pretty large purchase for our family. And, you know, we don't really need much. So, you know, I got her a couple of things that were just assets to go along with her phone and her electronics. Yeah. She's opened up a new venture. Let me go ahead and give her a plug. She is doing, God almighty.
Well, you better get it right, Arn. She's going to be listening.
Yeah, what is it called? It's where she puts up stuff and sells
like
it
Pinterest
online.
Does she do it on Pinterest or?
Damn it! Can we go back and if I screw this up?
No, it's all good. It's all good. We'll find out when she comes downstairs. We'll bring her in and we'll ask, but we'll figure it out.
But she posts. She's got a lot of really nice stuff, and she's been going through it. She's got a closet that's so full.
We'll have
stuff.
our social media guy post the link to Erin's on our social media, so to help her out. How's that sound?
That'd be great.
Let's do it. I love it.
Potch something or
Poshmark.
Poshmark.
Poshmark. Okay, that's what I thought. Poshmark's really, really popular. Okay.
I tell you what, there's a lot of nice stuff on there, man, and for not retail.
There you go.
So I'm really proud of her, and that's what she's kind of been doing. as of late, and she's doing real well with it. So.
All right, be on the lookout, guys and gals, for her Poshmark link. We'll get it figured out. We'll get it sent out there, and you guys can shop Anderson household items. I mean, how cool is that? There you go. Arrows is up. Go ahead.
Well, just to answer his question, nothing extravagant, nothing big. Just, we decided this year to just kind of do a few things that we needed to do. Barrett, our oldest son, needed some work done on his car. We popped for that, which is pretty expensive at Christmas time, which freed up his money to have a little more free money. Brock got a shotgun, so
you got your Glock. He has his shotgun.
That's right. We need to arm ourselves, folks, in this country these days. At least when you're in your home, you need to feel safe.
There you go. All right, sounds good. As far as for, he asked what we're both getting. Listen, my wife's good. I got her some Yeti stuff, some stuff for her phone, Starbucks, and some clothes, and we're calling it a Christmas, so she'll be happy. Arrows has a question. He wants to know, after your surgery, besides not being able to wrestle, Arn, what was an activity that you did regularly before that was different or that you couldn't do after? So is there something, a hobby or an activity or something, Arn, that you used to really enjoy that since you've had the surgery and the major injury that you just don't get to do or enjoy like you used to outside of wrestling?
Throw a baseball. Throw a Frisbee. Go to a batting cage. Hit some baseballs. Just anything normal. How about, people don't understand when you're left-handed and that hand is suddenly paralyzed. At the age I was, at 37 or whatever it was when this occurred, you can't teach yourself how to right-handed at that advanced age. You pull through a drive-through at Wendy's or wherever it may be, any drive-through, and you order something, a Starbucks or whatever, and you roll down the window. You can't just reach out and grab the cup because I can't hold it. I have to take off the seatbelt, reach across me, get it, bring it back in, set it down. Basically functioning. I can't do a button on this side. I can't do button of a shirt. I have to button it, slip it over my head. Day-to-day things that you would never think about. Can't do anymore. I used to love to get my boys out in the backyard and just pitch a baseball. Done.
Your right hand, is fully functional? Is it just your left hand and that's the hand you write with?
Yeah, I just don't write with this hand. I don't throw with this hand. But as far as picking stuff up and basically everything of everyday life I have to do with my right hand. Left hand is pretty much the thumb and the first finger are pretty much paralyzed. I got a little bit, and the middle finger and the last two have a little bit of strength. So it's but you know what? Before I sit around and start feeling sorry for myself, I think of somebody like Magnum TA who had that horrible car wreck, and all these years he has managed to lead a pretty damn good life, and it makes you feel foolish to look at this hand and feel sorry for yourself and see a guy like that who is in a wheelchair for life, but he don't ever complain. He manages to get through life just fine. So I'm not feeling sorry for myself, but there's a lot of just things you would never think about that aren't possible anymore.
I think about you, and what about autograph? I mean, you give autographs out. You're still able to sign with your left hand a little bit?
A little bit. I just literally have to put the pen in there and brace it pretty good, and thank God the fans are kind and considerate enough to know that lousy, and I usually have to print it, which it comes out a lot clearer with the 4 underneath it. That's a legitimate autograph, and they're accepting of that. And in a way, it identifies me. It's kind of like a doctor's autograph. We're allowed to get away with it. They got shitty handwriting, so do we. At least I do. So, yeah, nothing in particular, but a lot of little stuff that just, buttons and things inside the car that you would usually just normally do with your left hand. You'd figure out a different way to do it.
Arn, listen, bud, man, we love you, and I think you help put a lot of things in perspective for us. And I know, and Brian says it right here in the chat, you have such a great perspective and a great attitude. You bring up Magnum TA. He's another guy that we see at a lot of these autograph signings, still making it around in his chair and has that countenance of just positivity and happiness. And that's your approach too, man. And it just reminds us as fans how when you get the opportunity to meet these guys, just say thank you. Thank you for what you've given and what you've done to really just entertain us as fans. Because, man, you have put your bodies through a lot of wear and tear over the years to entertain us. So, man, I just love your attitude with that.
Well, thank you. And hey, don't feel sorry for me, guys. I continue to lead a very enchanted life, getting to go to these signings and stuff. And more so than you thanking me, I'd rather just spend that time thanking you, because I never got to tell you guys I loved what I did for a living. I'm continuing to love doing this show with Paul. Personal appearances, anything that I'm doing with AEW, when they choose to, to plug us in, I am thrilled to death to be a part of it. So just being involved in this business, I've said it 1,000 times, it's the greatest way to make a living on earth, because you meet all kinds of awesome people.
Guys, before we turn this into a full Hallmark greeting card, because I'm about ready to, I just want to say one thing before we move on. I've had the honor and privilege to be able to work with you, Arn, for the last 9 months or a year or so. And you know what I love about you? You're just as genuine when the cameras and everything's off, and you and I talk on the phone sometimes 45 minutes at a time about things, and you're just such a great guy. And I look up to you for more reasons now than just as the guy that I love to watch as a wrestler. So it's just been awesome. Brian Haremza, our buddy, he's here in the chat. He's watching. I believe he's still here with us. He says he has the following question. In Arn's opinion, can someone be a success in the wrestling industry if they cannot cut a promo, but they can carry a match? So they have one, they can carry that match, but man, they just can't do it on the mic. Can they still be a success in today's wrestling industry?
Yeah, I think so. There's kind of a formula out there. It's the big three. Let's just say, to stay employed in this business, you got to be able to either work, you have to have a great body, or you got to be able to cut a good promo. Now, if you can do any one of those, you can probably stay working and stay employed. But if you add a second one in, and you can do two of those, say you got a great body, let's say you can cut a promo, or let's just say you're an excellent in-ring performer and you got a great body. Any two of the three will pretty much guarantee you a position, upper middle, somewhere in that range, to a top guy. Now, if you've got all three, you're going to be a once-in-a-decade superstar, because you don't see very many people that have all three. And you can pick them out, and you can watch them, and you can watch them develop and see, God, man, this guy's got everything. And once you see those are your once-a-decade superstars.
Yeah, there you go. So good. And as you're talking about it, you can just picture guys in today's business that have one or maybe two or maybe even three, and you're absolutely right. Brian also tweeted, there are always great storylines in wrestling. In Arn's opinion, can a great storyline make two people into stars, or does a storyline have to have an established star in it to be successful?
Good question. I think someone has to be at a higher level if you're going to have let's just call it a personal issue. Someone has to be above the other one, either in stature or either in positioning or been there longer or so much bigger or so much more skilled, have so much more experience, so that the lesser of the two has a rung on the ladder he has to climb to reach this guy. If they're at the same level if that makes any sense. If they're at the same level, it's hard for one guy to pull a guy up and make him mean more. But if that guy's at a different level, he's been around a little longer, he's positioned a little better with the company, then you have a personal issue between the two. It's a little bit easier to reposition a guy than two guys are at the same. You can't learn in the ring. Let's just take the wrestling perspective of it. Two green guys just getting started can't learn anything from wrestling each other. They need to wrestle somebody better than them. It's the only way you get better, to wrestle someone better than you. Same thing with, positioning on promos and all those things. I just think that somebody needs to be a little more advanced in either the person is jealous of that person or that person is looking down his nose at the one that's not quite there, and now you got a personal issue, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does. And Brian has one more question, which this is another good one for you. In your opinion, in tag team wrestling, the teams work better when you have two opposite personalities, like a power and speed guy, or does it work being the same? For instance, two speed guys or two power guys. Does any of that matter, Arn, or do you think, hey, it does having someone to balance the other out?
I love two different guys put together that complement each other. Other than two guys that look alike, wear the same gear, do the same type promo, do the same moves. I love to have, like you said, speed, power. That's kind of what Tully and I had. He'd slap a guy in the face, roll out of the ring, have a guy chase him around two posts, slide in, hit me with a blind tag. Now the guy's concentrating on the speed guy, and he never sees what's coming from behind. It's just one of those nice balances of different blends well together, I think. Opposites attract, whatever you want to call it.
Now, as you said that, you think about the Technician and Bret Hart, and the Heavy with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and the blend that those guys had, whether it's Davey Boy and Dynamite, Power, and then you had Dynamite, who was the speed, the guy jumping off the top. In some ways, they were very similar, too, but you did have a little bit of that diversity there. Finally, Brian wants to know, in Arn's opinion, is facing the same opponent on a house show loop a way to get better TV/pay-per-view matches, or can you go into a match cold and still have a great wrestling match?
If you're really advanced, you can. Obviously, you can. In the old days, you would never wrestle a guy that you were going to ask the audience to pay $49.95 for. On Sunday, you wouldn't have them wrestle Friday and Saturday because I think you lose that first time, never happened before aspect to it. But we don't have, the business has completely changed, and I think you need to have a couple of runs with a guy just to get comfortable, because the reality is, I don't care who it is, ask any veteran that's working with another guy for the first time, there's a little bit of nervousness. If you've never, there's just that never worked with him before mystery. It may be just not amount to be anything. You go out and you got great chemistry and you got everything is just clicking, boom, 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 and you were sitting there for an hour or two a little bit anxious going, well, damn, I've never worked with this guy. I wonder how this, and you worry yourself into something that you shouldn't have. I like getting a feel of a guy a couple of times before you're on TV with him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and not that I've wrestled before, but you got to think getting your hands on someone a few times and getting that rhythm down, the timing, getting to understand each other's move sets a little bit, and how it's got to just make for a better match. Practice makes perfect type of thing. We have a question here from Austin Idol. Whether this is the real former wrestler Austin Idol or not, I don't know. But this question is all about your powerlifting days, Arn. What were your personal records in bench, deadlift, and squat? And how much did you weigh when you were competing?
Well, it was local stuff around Georgia, and I figured out pretty quick I wasn't going to be a huge success at it. I just started basically as a training tool I wanted to be a wrestler. And I was cutting meat in the grocery store, and it was a great job for Rome, Georgia, but that's not what I aspired to be. So I started powerlifting at my buddy's gym, Bob's Body Shop out there, and I I got up to 600 squat, 600 deadlift, and the one that killed me was the bench press. I never did 405. I did 400 was my best. So whatever that is, 1,600, I guess, for a total. But I was at like a meet down in somewhere around Atlanta, and it was a higher class of weightlifters, and a guy walks up to me, and he, I think I did a opening squat or something, 565 or something, and he comes over and he goes, "Hey man, a good lift. You're clean, aren't you?" And I went, What do you mean clean? He said, "No, man, you're not taking any steroids, are you?" And I said, "No, God, no. I wouldn't even begin to know how to do that or what, anything." He says, "Well, let me just tell you, you had good lift there, you'll probably have a good day today, and what are your totals?" And I told him what I'd done before, and he said, "But you can't compete in this without being on the gas." So it was a training tool then, but I immediately cut back on some of those heavy singles and heavy triples and all those things you do when you're powerlifting that are just, powerlifters are crazy too. I don't know if anybody ever told you. They're really nuts. It's a frame of mind, man. When you're snorting ammonia to get a squat, a single rep out of a squat and all kind of stuff like that, and have wrap your legs and, all these gadgets and the potential for getting hurt. It's a hard way to train. And so I tried it for a while, not so successful.
Arn, you've never been one to be shy about a good workout, one with deep sweats that pushes you to your limits. You've shared with us on the show time and time again that your gym routine was one of the most important elements to your success. But for our listeners who lack the discipline or the energy of the Rome, Georgia fashion plate and founder of the Four Horsemen, and are looking for a gimmick as reliable and effective as J.J. Dillon's loafers, listen, we want to suggest that you take a look at one of our most loyal sponsors, and that's Athletic Greens. Arn, just one scoop, and it gives you 75 high-quality vitamins and minerals. I'm talking about improving your health, sleeping better, improving your focus. What's not to like, man? It's a slam dunk, and I know you love the product.
It is. It's really good, and it's one of those things that I mix it in with my I'll get some. The key for me is ice cold water. It's got to be cold water. I don't drink tap water at room temperature, so that's just kind of across the board. And I kind of mix it in, chase it with my pre-workout stuff. And man, you talk about a combination. It's one of those deals that you take it for a couple weeks or a few weeks, and you really get it in your system, and then maybe there a day or two you don't. You just, for whatever reason, you don't. And you can see the difference. That's when you can tell the difference. So whatever those vitamins and minerals and stuff in there, man, your body gets used to them and it craves them and it digests them well. And it's real good for digestion. And Brock's taking it. He's a fan of it as well.
Listen, it is fantastic. It's going to change the way that you sleep. It's going to change the way that you feel in terms of energy. Better sleep quality and recovery. It costs less than $3 a day. It's completely worth the investment. It's received 7,000 five-star reviews. That may be a few more than Dave Meltzer's handed out in his day. And right now, you can reclaim your health and arm your immune system. It's just one scoop and a cup of water, just like Arn said. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do, you ready? Here it is. Go to athleticgreens.com/Arn. Those are the 3 magic letters. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Arn to take ownership of your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Arn, we move on with Michael Eldridge, and he says, first, which company does Arn think had better benefits for their employees? The York Foundation or Tully Blanchard Enterprises? Oh, man.
Well, I can tell you, the York Foundation had to be on a budget. that was about yay big. Tully Blanchard Enterprises. At least you knew you were going to be riding in a nice vehicle. He was a Mercedes man. And actually, Tully liked to dress. Tully liked to go out to eat, nice places, all those things. I'm sure Baby Doll got to experience some of that. I know I did. I would have to go with Tully Blanchard Enterprises.
There you go. TBE is the winner. Arn, his second question. How meaningful was it for Arn to put over Bobby Eaton at Super Brawl 1 for Bobby's first singles title?
Honor and a privilege. And it's the only thing that would have made any sense because he was a hell of a lot better than I was. And besides being he was the all-around human being. Bobby Eaton was as nice a man, honest a man as there ever will be. He was an accomplished worker, great businessman as far as, when you step through the ropes, he knew what the match needed, and he was right there. He was a pro, start to finish, and going to miss him horribly. But, yeah, man, I was honored to put Bobby Eaton over.
What a legend. Michael's final question is, what are some of Arn's favorite memories of working in Knoxville, Tennessee?
It's a great sports city. Really is. It's a great sports city. The football team came out of the woodwork, and they're someone to contend with again. It's always been a great wrestling town over the years. It's like one of those towns that they like wrestling. They support wrestling. And it was another good town because a lot of times I could just drive over the mountain from Charlotte. I think it's about 250. Drive back home that night, and they had really good gyms in the town. When you got a college, I've found my theory and history with it is when you have a college town that is very successful and has a huge student body, and the city kind of builds itself around the college and supports them and builds things that college kids like: good gyms, good restaurants, parks, athletic fields. I mean, you name it. Eclectic little streets that you can go down that have bars and restaurants and all that stuff. When you build it to entice a college kid to come there, it turns out being a nice community, and I think that's what Knoxville is. Plus, they have a zillion lakes that if you're a fisherman, they're everywhere. Ricky Steamboat is a current resident of there. Tom Pritchard.
Yes.
There's a reason those guys live there. I mean, and you can see it if you visit Knoxville at all. It's a really nice city.
Yep, I was going to say Dr. Tom, and he's got a great wrestling school down there, by the way, too. So check that out if you're interested in wrestling. We have another question come in from Way Cool Jr. 53 on Twitter. And he said, on syndicated worldwide wrestling, were those crowds really that loud, or was there artificial noise pumped in? I think that presentation always separated the Crockett shows from the WWF.
No, buddy. Hey, you didn't have to pump in no noise. Just look at the people. They were all standing. It always amused me and I figured out after working for WWF for a while, when you got in those 33 matches at a TV taping, once you got up there about 20 and 25, they were dying off, the crowd. And you would pan across from the hard camera, and everybody would be sitting there like there were cutout drawings, and the noise that they were piping in and nobody was budging. It's just like a bad Japanese cartoon, brutal. Yeah, we had no problem getting the audience rocking and rolling with Crockett, that's for sure.
Man, you could, and he's right though. You could feel the energy just watching it on your little local channel, wherever you got to watch awesome, whether it was Worldwide or Mid-Atlantic Wrestling or whatever the case may be, Saturday night, TBS. Man, you could feel the energy. Saturday night stage shows, the crowds were into it as well. But those shows, whether they were worldwide or mid-Atlantic, they just were next level in terms of crowd reaction. Andrew Newman's up next. He said, did you ask Ole if you could keep using the Arn Anderson name after you finished up in Georgia in 1983? Since he gave you the name when you came into GCW, not sure if it was understood you could keep it permanently after you left.
Yeah, pretty much. It was pretty much well known. That was a conversation that was never would have happened. It just didn't. It's not something you can give a guy your gimmick and then take it back. It was one of those things that once you're an Anderson, you're always an Anderson. And I think Ole, if you could ever get him to admit it, thinks, or I hope he does anyway, that I added something to the name. I had a contribution to making the Anderson name, not better than what it was, but just different, and keep it going and keep people interested in it. And I took a lot of pride in being an Anderson, just like I do today, just like my son does. It's a frame of mind. It's a thought process, and it just happens to have the name Anderson tagged to it.
All right, Mike Sem has an excellent question. Hey, Arn, which version of Sting is your favorite? The young blonde surfer Sting, the Crow Sting, the Wolfpack Sting, or the TNA Joker Sting? What's your favorite?
God, man, he had such an incredible look with the first look that he had.
Yeah.
I mean, I would see him go to, these signings and these functions, and basically, if he just stopped on his way after a show out to his car and he had 50 people standing around him, it's almost like he was glowing. You could see the guy inside the crowd. The hairdo, he was tanned. His hair was snow white, and spiked up, and he always wore nice leather outfits and, dressed to the nines. He looked like a rock star. He was a rock star.
He was, man. And that, to me, that's what I first remember, because that's when I was a kid. That was the first exposure to Sting, was UWF and then into Crockett. And it was the loud surfer style Sting with all the color. I mean, and all the charisma. So I think the first memory is I'm right there with you.
Well, I mean, he would walk to see him in August, tanned, good physique.
Oh, yeah.
Walking through a hotel lobby with a tangerine colored leather pants, leather jacket, it's like, Jesus Christ, who was that? You knew, even if you didn't know who he was, you knew he was somebody.
Bigger than life. That's what he was.
Bigger than life, yes, sir.
Yeah. Jeremy Bennett wants to know, do you think Bobby Eaton could have been a Horseman? Could you see Bobby Eaton fitting into the Horsemen?
Oh, shit, yes. Of course. And especially if it was done the right way. And Bobby, whose strong suit was not talking, he wouldn't have had to have talked much. All he had to do was go out and perform. And that would have been my promo for him. Hey, if you're waiting on Bobby to say something today, folks, he's fixing to as soon as we get in the ring. As for now, I'll do his talking. And that's all it would have taken.
Perfect wingman and Arn Anderson for Bobby Eaton. Would have been fantastic.
Wouldn't have taken much.
Scott Golden wrote in. He said, Arn, can you kindly explain the differences between the art of registering and selling through the course of a match?
Okay, good question. If we're sitting side by side and we're talking, Paul, and it doesn't matter what we're talking about, football, who got arrested in Oklahoma last night, or whatever our conversation is, and we're just kind of, engulfed in our conversation. If out of nowhere I just thump you on the nose, I'm going to get what the hell's the matter with you? That's registering. If I thump you in the nose and you take a flat back bump, you've went too far. And it's one of those, that didn't look right. Registering is, if a guy doesn't connect, about 50%. It's an almost whiff. Treat it like it's a whiff. Don't oversell it. Overselling is as bad as underselling. Now, one of these things that I'm not a fan of is the guys standing in the middle of the ring and exchanging flippers to the jaw. Now, I'm fine with that, is if first one you eat, boom, there's head English, there's body English on it. But if you just hit each
You're
other.
talking about these guys that just go punch for punch with each other.
And nobody's head ever moves.
Okay.
I believe if I hit a guy twice with a flipper as hard as I can and his head don't move, I'm going to bail out of the ring and I'll see you back in the shower a little bit. So I am being way over my head.
Right.
Selling is imperative to what we do and everything you do. You know, if you're in the ring and the mat slips and you roll an ankle, guess what? Treat it like you would if you're out on the street. Sit down, call a timeout, and go, wait a minute, I rolled my ankle. People understand that. You know, the example, if you're walking along playing grab ass with your girlfriend or your wife on some city street and you're not paying attention and the curb's there and you step off the curb and you roll your ankle, what do you usually end up doing? If there's nothing to grab, you go right on your ass and sit up and grab your ankle and go, don't touch it.
Yeah.
We all react the same way because we've all done it. It's a natural reaction, and here's the way that you would sell it. So just make common sense out of something. Sell it to the degree that it was viewed by the audience and interpreted to be, I guess, is the best way I could say it.
We do have a request from the chat from Brian, who says, yes, please do that. Punch Paul the next time you see him in the middle of a sentence. So there you go.
No, Paul's, I don't know if you know, Paul's about 6'5".
Hey, there's a guy, Max, he'd love you to punch me in the face. He doesn't like hearing about my food fetish and the Steelers and whatever else. Yeah, so a couple people would love to see you just give me the spine on the pine, Arn. Do you think we could maybe do that together one day?
No, and to those same people, I would say get a whiff of that 6'5" one time, up close and personal, and you'll rethink that. Paul's a little larger than I knew he was the first time I saw him, and I kind of went, damn, okay. I wasn't expecting that. So
we all look the same in our desk chairs. That's for sure. It's all good. Hey, I'm a lover, not a fighter. It's all good, Brian. Hey, that was fun. Listen, we got more questions, and I know we only have another minute or a couple minutes left, so we're going to do one more here. What are your memories of wrestling in Alexandria and Lake Charles, Louisiana? That's from Jeffrey Pollard.
That they were close to Baton Rouge. 1:30 to Alex, and then what was the other one? Lake Charles?
Yep, Lake Charles.
1:30 down the interstate, heading towards Houston. Short trips. When I worked for Watts, they were still a lot of money, oil money in Louisiana. It had kind of peaked and was teetering off a little bit. Alexandria, just a note. For years and years and years, Mid-South, a lot of the guys would live in Alexandria because it was the center point of the territory. You could drive to any town that Bill Watts ran and get back home at night for Alexandria. The hook to that was we didn't run Alexandria very often. So it wasn't like if you lived in Baton Rouge, every Monday you knew that New Orleans was 80 miles down the road, and then you were home on Tuesday for Baton Rouge. That's 2 days you knew you were going to be home, no matter what. So that was kind of an interesting point. But still, a lot of guys chose to live in Alexandria just to break up the driving a little bit.
Arn, listen, this has been an absolute blast. We're at the top of the hour, and I just wanted to, in the chat, I was thanking all of our ad-free shows members for joining and keeping us entertained in the chat as we went through. But not only is this going to wrap us up for this week, this is going to wrap us up for this year. Man, we've got a lot of fun things in store for the audience. We're going to do Ask Arns at least once a month in 2023. We're going to firm up some other things because we're also going to do something in addition in 2023 that we have not yet tried or done before. So keep an eye out for that. But we're going to continue to go on the journey throughout Arn's career. So keep up with our social media. Be on the lookout for our show posts. Keep the questions coming in. Remember, support AA. You can go to arnlinks.com. That's where you're going to find the links to the Horsemen and Arn Show stores. There's a lot happening over at the Horsemen store. You can find our episode archives, links to all of our social media, plus our YouTube channel. Guys, listen, even if you're on ad-free and haven't done so yet, go to our YouTube channel and make sure you subscribe. That does a lot for Arn and I, for our subscribers to grow that channel. We want to break 50,000 subscribers here in the first quarter of 2023, and we're well on our way, 40,000 plus. So really help us do that. Arn, this has been fun this week, man.
For those that don't know, the infamous Glock promo that I did on AEW, this is the shirt that came from that. So it is kind of cool. It's got a little bit of a Sopranos ring and a nice message to it. So you can get that at Box of Gimmicks. Shameless plug.
No, we need all the shameless plugs, man. Check it out. The Arn store over there, the Four Horsemen store over there. But without further ado, we're going to wrap this one up this week. On behalf of the leader, the founder of the Four Horsemen, Arn Anderson, I'm Paul Bromwell, and you've been listening to Arn